And now on the line is John Malone from Christian TV Ireland. John, welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Okay, John, could you talk me and our listeners through the process of why you decided to set up Christian TV Ireland, and then tell us how you are getting on at the moment with the development of the channel?
Yes, I've been doing videos since 2015 and concentrating on the Christian aspect of life in Ireland, in the towns and villages, and promoting a Christian view of life, and concentrating on some political aspects also. But this has evolved now to, in the past a few months, to evolve to promoting a Christian TV station, Christian TV Ireland station, that's long overdue because of the one-sided secular view, which is promoted by the secular government and the media in this country, both TV, radio and print, with the exception of a few Catholic magazines and newspapers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions about Christianity in general in Ireland, but I'll ask you them towards the end of the interview. Do you have a big team working with you on trying to develop the channel, John, or is it a solo initiative?
Well, there's a few people helping to support this noble project. We haven't got a team as such, but I have long experience in this country dealing with people in every county in Ireland. And so these are the people that I will be approaching for donations, because this TV station, this Christian TV Ireland station will not be dependent on advertisements from businesses or such. It will be founded on donations from people who support another TV station to promote the values that they were brought up with in the Catholic and Christian faith, various faiths in this country, for many years, and going back even as far as the penal times when it wasn't possible to celebrate Mass in a public manner. And this is why in this country we have so many Mass rocks, and where Mass was celebrated by priests that had to go around in disguise, and many of them were betrayed and martyred for their faith. But Irish people support it and practice, even in their own danger, at Mass, and in many numbers. And that's how the Catholic and Christian faith, and indeed the Irish culture, was protected and promoted.
Okay, I was talking to you before the interview, and there is actually a Christian television channel available on the television in Ireland. It's from America, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's the largest global television, Catholic Christian television station in the world. It started 40 years ago in 1981. Its 40th anniversary is occurring about now, and founded by a poor Clare nun, Mother Angelica, who was started this on a wing and a prayer, but it is now in many countries and watched by up to 300 million people each day, doing marvellous work and responsible for many conversions to the Catholic and Christian faith.
I was reading on the internet as well. I'm not sure if it still exists, but I believe at one stage maybe it's still there. There used to be one in the UK as well, is there? Or was there?
Well, not that I'm aware of. They talk about it, but our project is just purely for the Irish country, because people have not got a different agenda other than the secular agenda promoted by the TV, radio, print in this country, and that includes the independent radio stations, etc. We don't hear the voice of sanity and reason, and the beauty of the Catholic and Christian faith, fought very hard, very much by our ancestors, and without the sort of support of the Christian brothers founded by Blessed Edmund Rice from Waterford a couple of centuries ago, when Irish people could not practice their Catholic faith, could not be educated. This is why you had head schools. Now, this is the kind of history that we come for, and not alone were they persecutors. Their lands were taken off them, and they were reduced to living in small hovels with barely a half an acre to sustain themselves by growing potatoes and such like. So Catholics and Catholics particularly, were denied the human rights that we hear so much about nowadays from the secular media. There wasn't much human rights for the Irish people in those times, and our culture was also denied. They tried to destroy the Irish culture, the marvellous Gaelic language that was practiced by the majority of people. A lovely language, a lovely musical language. And one time, of course, and similar to some continental languages, a very descriptive language. And of course, when people were addressed by letter, which only the educated or a few Irish could communicate, they were addressed as a Gina Ursel. And that more or less translates into English as "oh noble one," but you couldn't say that in English. Whereas in Irish, it was an expression when you were addressing a letter to someone, a Gina Ursel. So this is the type of noble language that was destroyed in the noble culture that produced such literature, etc., down the centuries. So this is where Christian TV Ireland will promote all these values that have been eroded, and such a beautiful language that should be encouraged rather than being compulsory. Like in Wales, for example, where now the Welsh language, the Welsh Gaelic language, is spoken by and in print and radio by many people, and it was never compulsory. They were attracted to it because of its marvellous culture, much like the Gaelic language. So these are the kind of issues that the Christian TV Ireland will focus on. We'll focus on the views of the people in the towns and villages that have been neglected, and whose views are not listened to or adhered to.
Okay, you just mentioned there about Ireland and Wales and our native languages. From what I've heard, I don't know, I might know as much of this about you, but I've heard that the Welsh, the church in Wales, the Protestant Church of Wales, or whatever it's called, was a lot better over the last couple of hundred years for the Welsh language than the Catholic Church was for Irish in Ireland. Have you heard that?
Well, yes, well, you see, don't forget they managed to hold on to their culture by way of the choral singing. The Welsh are well known for male voice choirs and such like. Now we are also well known for sacred music and that culture, and the Gregorian chant, the marvelous music that was heard in many churches in my young days, because there was choirs. Churches were packed in my young days and even into my 30s, because we had the Mass celebrated in what was considered the universal language of the Catholic Church, which was Latin, and with the priest facing the altar and churches packed, and not alone churches packed, but the sacrament of confession promoters and Catholics in their hundreds attending confession every Saturday, and you've often had 3 or 4 priests hearing confessions for a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours every Saturday. So this was the background that I grew up with, and it's not that long ago. And so I've seen the decline and I've seen the erosion of the Catholic ethos, not alone in this country, with the policies that they have pursued, which is against the Catholic and Christian faith, not just Catholics, but other Christian faiths, which has also been supported by the European Union, which heretofore was the European Economic Community, which supported the economic development of the people in the various countries to prevent war. But it has evolved into a political union, and in the process has denied the existence of God and that aspect of things. Have adopted a very secular agenda, and followed by the various governments, with the exception of a couple of countries like Hungary and Poland, and maybe 1 or 2 other ones that were under the communist yoke and know what it's like to be under a totalitarian regime in which the freedom of religion and the free expression of views and the democratic will and people being able to express themselves without being persecuted. This is where these countries now are very much appreciative of the freedom now that they enjoy, and in which the faith of the people that was repressed is now celebrated, the Orthodox particularly, and the Catholic and Christian faiths as well. So this is something that is in our lifetime that we can see and that we should fully understand. But I don't think you're going to hear those views expressed generally.
Okay, just to talk a bit more about the Christian media in Ireland and the Western world, maybe. You mentioned the station in America that's 40 years old this year. In Ireland, there's a radio station, I believe, Spirit FM. I don't know anything about it now, and there's also a couple of Catholic newspapers. Can you give me a bit of a summary of the existing Christian / Catholic, maybe, media in Ireland?
Well, yes, you have Spirit Radio. Unfortunately, it's not widely listened to by the majority. And likewise, you have another radio station, Radio Maria, which is a Christian Catholic and a Christian station, and promotes the sort of views that Christian TV Ireland, if it gets up and running, will be promoting. But we'll be promoting essentially the beauty and gift of baptism and the Holy Communion and confirmation that is available to people to develop their spiritual and their spiritual nature which they have. And of course, in my younger days, Sunday was regarded as a day of rest and the Sabbath, and so the people then attended Mass in their vast numbers, and there was several masses off and on in bigger parishes, and so. But that has been gradually eroded by the closure of family businesses that occurred, and then the erosion of that aspect of faith, because of the influx of the multiples in the food trade, which don't respect the Sabbath in that sense of the word. They're open all the time, and so people haven't had chance. They're living a frantic life, trying to keep up to everything, and neglecting the most important aspect of their nature, which is their spiritual nature, and so therefore, if you're working all the time, then how are you going to devote time to the family life and the obligation to attend your service if you're a Catholic once a week, and if you're a Christian from other faiths, you'd have the same probably obligation to develop that aspect of your nature without this question of everything being open and people not having a chance to do that and visit their relatives, etc. So all these situations that existed in my time is no longer there. People are living isolated lives. They haven't got the development that I'm just after speaking about, and really they're the losers for that, which is why we have so many social problems that are often highlighted. But that would be one of the factors if you haven't a chance to develop your spiritual life by attending church and the sacrament which we have in the Catholic Church of confession. Other faiths probably have some other method of confessing their sins, but we have that, and it's a great sacrament and a great ability for people to have a clear conscience and to be able to receive in Holy Communion the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our divine Saviour. So a great gift passed on to Catholics down the centuries. Don't forget, there's been persecutions in the last century by way of the communist system, which was promoted the good of the ordinary working class, and it was quite the opposite. It was the persecution of the working class, and likewise the Nazi and the Nazis, or the German Nazis, that condemned so many people to death. You see, the secular and these totalitarian regimes, they have this obsession with killing innocent people by way of the abortion and by way of the euthanasia and assisted suicide and whatever else they can come up with. They're never satisfied, and that's what happens with totalitarian regimes, which, funny enough, this country was described, the government of this country in 2011 was described by one of the Catholic newspapers, newspapers alive, as one of the most totalitarian governments in the history of the state. When Gilmore, as Minister for Foreign Affairs, not a West Week in the job, towards the Irish Embassy to the Vatican. And of course, they've gone on. I know they're decimated compared to what they were. So the message doesn't seem to have got through to them. They're still at the same racket, promoting division and not respecting the beliefs of the vast majority of people. It's very peculiar that the towns and villages now are deserted, practically. There's family businesses are nearly eroded, except for those that are in some symbol stores, still owned by people, but there's a monopoly situation, and so this is the result of the policies that they have pursued. So they've eroded the sort of foundation for what people have been able to live during the years as I was growing up, and family stores given good value and given and given credit where people would otherwise maybe go hungry. So there was a lot of good done by businesses down the years, but now, and credit given, but I think there's not too much credit given to customers now in the monopoly situation. But of course, those same monopolies insist on getting long credit from their suppliers. So I'm digressing from the business of the Christian TV, but we will be talking to people and the concerns around the country when this station gets up and running. We won't be preaching at them. We'll be listening to their views. There'll be programs there for families and that they can look at in safety and freedom without being indoctrinated and by being put on the wrong path in their lives and not having a chance to develop that aspect of their lives.
Okay, we'll talk in a few minutes a bit more about how Ireland has changed over the last few decades, but just a couple more questions on the kind of technical side of starting a television channel. Okay, John, how much funding would you need, or do you need, to start a new television channel?
Well, obviously you need a good bit of funding, but we have a target, and I believe it can be reached, and I have the faith in this because when you're undertaking a project like this, one of the main ingredients is faith and hope. So we'll be dependent on donations from people in the country. I will be doing everything I can to sort of get sufficient donations that we can reach the target of €1,000,000 that we have. When we have that figure, and by the way, when people donate, they get a receipt from the bank that we have, that we're using, an international bank called Stripe. It's an unusual name, but it's used widely by institutions and businesses throughout the world because it's international system that is secure. We will be applying for a charity license by our solicitors who are now just unfortunately on holidays just at the moment, but they'll be back in mid-August, and so therefore they will be looking for a charity license, which will be hopefully a help to those business people that might donate, because we'll be dependent on that. We won't be dependent on advertisements, but by goodness, we will promote religious tourism to the country, because the country is full, has plenty of pilgrim paths, holy wells, abbeys and churches that were destroyed during the penal times and the persecution in this country, and not in this country, but in our neighbouring country, Britain. They were destroyed. That supplied great infrastructure needs and for the people living nearby, and in the towns where all these monasteries were, and given great work and developing the agricultural business that they were very good at, and so therefore farmers and all these ones were able to then eventually find that they could learn from that. So they were destroyed, and a lot of people then went hungry because they were supplying food to people that needed food. So we're awash with all these in this country. We have numerous ones. So we'll be promoting that type of tourism. And funny enough, it's not all Christians. It's people that are searching for something that are now apparently going in these on these pilgrim paths and that type of thing. So this is one of the areas that we will be promoting very much.
Okay, I won't keep you much longer, John. For a lot of people under the age of 60, I think it's most people actually in general. We get most of our news and digital entertainment nowadays from the internet more than we do from television and radio. As you know, I'm on YouTube as well, and I think it's great, and you have a very rich YouTube channel. I think personally, even if you were to solely market and develop your YouTube channel and website, that you could service the niche market that is there in Ireland who are interested in Christian themed videos. What do you think of that?
Well, you see, you mentioned the word niche. You see that and that's good in its own way, but really it's the wider audience that one will approach. You see, if people haven't got a choice in what they can look at, and be not affronted and families can look at the stations. People look at television, even though other people get their information from from other sources, etc. But that doesn't satisfy that spiritual need that each human being has, whether they know it or not, or whether they have it subdued. So there's a hunger there, and while the other items that you just mentioned there are quite good, but unfortunately, it's not enough. It doesn't satisfy their spiritual needs, quite frankly. And there are YouTube channels that do help in that, but it's the wider audience, it's the families, it's that are neglected. It's the fact that the decline in the attendance at church services in this country and in other countries, the lack of promoting the marvelous gifts that such habits can confer on people. We don't forget, and you don't hear this, I don't think, in the sort of the modern whatever they look at or listen to. You don't realise that there is the Christian faith and Christian tradition that established universities and hospitals throughout the world, and this type of thing. And don't forget that our ancestors had to depend for an education on head schools. Don't forget that the education that was provided in this country by Christian brothers and nuns, without that we were practically illiterate. They sacrificed their private lives for to bring this to the people, and they don't get any credit for it. As a matter of fact, they get the reverse times from the secular media. So we have to have another voice in the TV world that people can look at in confidence and find themselves uplifted, and not just uplifted, but entertained, because it won't be all preaching. It'll be a variety. There'll be a variety to help people to grow in that aspect of their lives that I don't think is catered for that much now, because of the lack of people going to develop that aspect of their lives, and they won't do it, quite frankly, in the modern way of what they do with their phones and all the rest of it. There's another side to their nature, and I think we can see it because of the problems that we've had in this country. And don't forget, unfortunately, not just here, but apparently it's a growing problem in the United States of the amount of suicides. Now, families can be disrupted for that and have a heartache for the rest of their lives with it. So we can't just, we won't find all these answers on the social media, Derek, or Darren. We won't find it there, quite frankly. And so we have to sort of put our faith in this and hope that people will support this noble project, because it's sorely needed.
Okay. Ireland used to be a very Catholic country. I was aware of this even as a kid in the 1980s. You've already answered this question a lot already in our interview, but could you tell me how you would personally describe the big decline in the influence of the Catholic Church in Ireland since you were growing up?
I certainly could, and it's quite simply it's lost the reverence. When we had the universal language of the Latin, which was regarded in my time as the universal language of the church, so no matter what country you went to, you could attend mass, because most of us, irrespective of any, we weren't wealthy or anything like that, we were from humble enough establishments or homes, and so we had misses, so we could follow the mass. It wasn't an impossible task. It was quite easy, and the reverence was there. Now that unfortunately has dissipated, and now instead of a sermon on missions that used to take place every year in Catholic churches, and I presume in other churches, because the other Christian churches, the marvellous preachers, they depend on the Bible for what they believe in, but we also have the Bible and use the Bible. But I think the change that occurred, that the reverence was lost, and also very important, and this is very important. The altar race was taken out of churches to make everybody sort of like a part of the thing, and it had the opposite effect. If you do away with the reverence and the rosary and benediction that they had in Catholic churches, and the men, well, I think you mightn't even know what it means, but the men's and women's solidarities, these were where every fortnight men every month men attended a solidarity, and they were obliged to go to confession and Holy Communion, that kind of thing. And it kind of had, depending on what part of the town, if you were in a town or the townland, you went into that section, and so people got to know people after they were moved to a town that they weren't used to, and the same with the women. So you might say every fortnight there was a solidarity either for men and women. And it improved it was a factor, but the reverence was a factor, and the marvellous Gregorian chant, that was a feature of it. Now, that was done away with, you see. The Rosary and Benediction now doesn't be held in many churches, except maybe the Latin rite. And also the men's and women's solidarities is no longer there. So if you erode these things, what can you expect? And I mean, now it's sad to see so many people absent and suffering as a result. So this was something that was there, and it's so sad to see the erosion of that kind of reverence. You have to have that. It just doesn't happen just like that. There has to be the culture and the practice and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, that was eroded. Now we have the priest, instead of facing the tabernacle, he's facing the congregation with his back to the altar. And really, my opinion is that whatever they say, it's not the kind of reverence that's required. The priest needs to be facing the tabernacle, and then given his homily or whatever it is, and there needs to be in every Catholic church a mission once a year, which was there in my time. And now I think I don't recall mission only maybe once in the past nearly 20 years in the parish I happen to be living in the country. So yeah.
Where would the mission go to the developing world, is it?
No, my missions, these were missions that missioners, there was the Franciscans and the Franciscans and the Dominicans, and those type of orders often had priests going for a fortnight to each parish and given a mission to sort of reignite the faith of the people in the area, and it did have that effect. So that hasn't happened now in many churches. And another thing that hasn't been promoted, unfortunately, and if you don't promote it, and that is the sacrament of confession. So all these things are deteriorated, and there's no point in them kind of putting their heads in the sand. You want to reintroduce reverence, and the same with the other Christian churches. Go back to basics and rethink the situation that you find yourself in. And after all, if you're running a business and you lost so many customers like that, well, you'd have to rethink your situation and try and refocus on getting them back. In the same way with the Catholic and Christian faiths, they need to concentrate on that and get people back, but to develop their spiritual life, because if you haven't got that, what have you got? What are you this life for? Your life in this earth is very short in terms of eternity. So the nourishment that requires, it needs to have the reverence reintroduced. When you go into a church, the tabernacle is a place where we genuflect, and where in Catholics we Jesus present there in the sacrament as what it is. So these are all things that I think modern people now wouldn't be able to understand, because you won't understand it in a secular kind of in that way. You have to practice it. It has to be faith, certain faith in that. And then when that's developed, then the reason then comes into it as well. So, but if it's not developed, you're not even at the starting gate.
Okay.
And a lot of people are not. God help them.
Okay, do you have a personal opinion or on behalf of the channel on the growth of Eastern and alternative forms of spirituality in the Western world over the last 20 or 30 years, things like Buddhism and Reiki?
No, well, as I say, unfortunately, they're not Christian. While they're applicable to the countries that they come from. What is very encouraging is the Orthodox Church, which is affiliated to the Catholic Church and some other denominations. But most of the religions believe in God and eternal life. And that's the main feature with them all. The Catholic Church has one advantage has been actually founded by St. Peter, the first Pope, appointed by Jesus, our Saviour. And then it's been continued ever since. The fact that there might have been popes that weren't as holy as they would be down the centuries didn't take from the fact that that's the tradition that has been continued on. And so therefore we have that. And but we have, even from going back to the Greek, Aristotle and Socrates, and that they were able to establish that there had to be there had to be a being other than just material. There had to be some creator. And they were able, with reason and philosophy, to establish that. So this is something that in modern times, with the persistent what they call it, indoctrination of the secular governments and kind of left wing leaning, and the sort of denial of that truth. That eternal truth. So people have suffered as a result. This is where the Christian TV Ireland needs to address that. We will be focusing on things in a very proactive fashion, in a way that hopefully will connect with people, not just in this country, perhaps in other countries as time goes on, because we have a lot of Irish people spread throughout the world, 30 million in the US, and God knows how many million in our neighbour in Britain. At least 1 million Irish-born people went there, and which is far too many to have to leave their homeland, and they would have descendants, and so there could be up to 5 million of potential Irish citizens in that neighbouring country. So we have a lot to hopefully try to attract for donations abroad, and also in our home base. But we have great hope that will come to pass, because it's sorely needed, Darren.
Okay, I've not much longer left in the interview, John. I know over the years you've been involved in politics. Could you tell me, because I know you're involved in these debates to some extent, could you tell me how much of a blow you think it is to the Christianity in Ireland to see the last abortion and gay marriage referendum being voted through by the electorate?
You see, yeah, I'd say one thing. The Fatima sister, Lucia, that her 3 secrets, one of them was that in the modern times would be the attack on the family, and that is a accord with abortion and marriage now being defined as between 2 men or 2 women, as the case might be, and that means the erosion of marriage. Now we have the indoctrination of children proposed by this government, and indeed over other governments, without a better leave. They're nearly establishing another kind of a religion, a religion that sort of anything goes, and that the Christian faith has been practically denied, and crucifixes in hospitals and churches has been sort of wanting to be taken down, and the names of hospitals changed from a religious connotation, even in this country. So all these items are not conducive to the thing. What was the question you asked me there, Darren, just before?
The last two big referenda, how big of a blow do you think it is to Christianity in Ireland? Like,
and now you're tired. It was a big blow because you see, there's two things here, and the Catholic faith by people that were baptized as Catholics with First Holy Communion confirmation, which the majority were. Now they're obliged to attend Mass every Sunday, otherwise they're in a state of mortal sin, unless they're unable to do it because of health reasons. Most of them don't have that, or didn't have that problem. They choose not to go, and so therefore this is how the people voted for these things, two referendums, because there was no wide debate. There was no debate in the Dáil or in our Parliament, which occurred, funny enough, when the last effort to do these things was taken during the period when Gary Fitzgerald was Taoiseach, and the media was in support of the very same things now that came to pass. But it was defeated because there was a debate in the Dáil. But there was no debate this time. There was no debate anywhere except one-sided debate in the media with three Catholics and the other ones. But the whole emphasis on the media was in support of these things. Because don't forget, the state broadcaster is in receipt of the licence fee, and so therefore they're in an invidious position of having to support the policies of this device of this secular type government that we're saddled with, that wanted to erode the Catholic and Christian ethos of the country so long practice. But they've had a long innings at it. Don't forget, when you do away with and erode the family stores and the family businesses throughout the country, and all the brands that I was used to no longer here in the country, imported in the most cases, and a lot of, when you do that kind of thing, and you erode this, and the Catholic, because of the emphasis on all this abuse in the Catholic Church and this attack on nuns, and that provided a sanctuary for abandoned women and children, when they started attacking them as if like that they were evil or something, when the reverse was true, when the state abandoned all these people. So you've got this attack constant, and the church not responding because of, I don't know what, fear or what have you. I pray for that they'll have the spiritual awakening, much the same as the apostles when they started. They were afraid as well, had doors locked, afraid to go out. But when the Holy Spirit come on them, out they went, and then most of them were all martyrs, except John, that got the great honour of looking after our Blessed Mother during her life from Jesus on the cross. So all this sort of stuff has been not promoted whatsoever. And when you do that, when you indoctrinate people, not least with this COVID lockdown and all the rest of it, promoting fear. We've had viruses and various things down the years. Medical people deal with them, but there's seem to be incapable of dealing with this virus for some strange reason. I hope it's not a political agenda project, because if there's a virus eventually and they do mutate, all viruses mutate and go off this way, that way, the other way. But if you're qualified as a doctor or a surgeon or whatever it is, well then obviously you must begin to be able to deal with these things. That's my opinion. So all this business is eroded and put fear into people, and sometimes it's something that happens for apparently a purpose, and China, the communists, are blamed for it because of course, they're not in favour of the freedom of individuals. So we have this, but in this country, sadly, as I've explained, as the white people have got lost, they need to come back. People are good in my book. My business experience dealing with people and dealing with people in their homes, in another occupation, I find that most people are good, but they have to be informed. If they're not informed, what can we expect?
Okay, John, to come towards the end of our interview, could you tell me and our listeners, for those who are interested, how they can find out more about Christian TV Ireland and your work in general?
Certainly. Well, anyone that's familiar with the use of computers or laptops can look up on the web ChristianTVIreland.ie. They've only got to put that in. Put in ChristianTVIreland.ie, and the information will be there. They'll see some of the videos, they'll see some of the ways they can donate, and I am confident. This is where trust comes in and faith comes in. I'm confident that Irish people have been good down the centuries and been put upon. We will not be doing that, but if their donations help us to establish this voice that is sadly needed, we don't hear in the media, quite frankly, we just don't hear these views. And people that use the internet, and more power to them that they can use this, maybe they can use it to find out about the Christian TV Ireland. It will give them hope. And I can guarantee that there'll be programs there to interest them and entertain them, because it won't be all preaching, but there will be religious services for the Catholics and for Christians and for Orthodox and for Muslims. Because they believe in God, and I think they claim that they're descendants from Abraham, which was in the Jewish and Christian tradition. So we'll be also hearing from the Jewish people, because they have a marvelous. They celebrate. They keep the Sabbath holy. And so that we can learn from all these, and we intend to learn from all these. But ultimately, it'll be something that people can look at in great confidence and be entertained and be informed.